Hi, this is Dana, and on this channel I speak about spiritual warfare. I have another channel on astrology and a Facebook page on which I wrote prophetic writings for years. You find that in the description box below. In this video, God has guided me to talk about why we incarnate and how that is connected to bondage breaking. And this basically describes from a perspective of the divine realm logic in continuing to do incarnations, continuing to send on assignment souls from divine lineage into 3D. And basically, bottom line is that all narratives that we are fed into 3D, everything that we are told and what we experience are lies, are bondage created on different topics, on different individuals or personalities, on everything around you. Everything basically is a lie, it's a deception. This is basically to cover up the mechanism behind it, the matrix, and the way they steal resources, they steal identities in order to access resources and to maintain domination over this territory, yeah, which is basically a certain dimension, a lower dimension, unfortunately. Now, God has shown to me that there's debate out there among these karmics why we keep coming in 3D. And God showed me I should speak about this. Literally, what happens is that you have ancestors who have come throughout time in 3D on assignment, on divine assignment, basically to shed light, because there are a lot of lies told, and with those lies, there are humans being entrapped and being dominated, enslaved, and fed on them, and so on. So individuals from divine realm, souls from divine realm, incarnate and come into 3D in order to shed divine light, to claim and make divine justice, which essentially involves also karma delivery to those who create the bondages, but also justice to those who are victims of these bondages. Yeah, and literally by this, the darkness created through that bondage is being transmuted, and the divine will is enforced. Basically, the divine will for each individual, the will of God, when He created those individuals who actually live in human form. Now, what I want to emphasize is that how you do this, it's pretty simple. Literally, all the bondages created on you as a divine being incarnated in human embodiment, in human incarnation, literally are updated copies of bondages created on your ancestors. And it has been my experience that each and every single bondage which you fight to break is essentially an updated copy of a bondage created on your ancestors, on one of your ancestors. Now, your ancestors fought to break that bondage. Some of them were very successful. Some of them were partially successful because they killed them before they succeeded to finish breaking that bondage. Regardless how successful they were, once they left 3D through ascension, these individuals in 3D created bondages, and God has shown this to me repeatedly. When you leave, they create lies. Even though you broke the bondage and you got divine justice and they were punished for it, once you leave, they will create lies about what really happened, you know. And that is essentially the center of the creation of a new bondage. And I will give in this video again the example of Jesus, who is my ancestor and he's my spiritual guardian in divine realm. and who, as I explained in the previous video, was not crucified in physical form. There was a sacrifice ritual of crucifixion done on him in astral realm, just like it is being done on all of us constantly, for a generational curse placed on his lineage, just like it is being done on all of us in 3D, right? He broke that bondage and he received divine justice. He became an ascended master. He received from God a different embodiment and a different assignment. He moved to a different region. He was not killed. He continued his life in 3D and his spiritual work in entirely different area. And literally, he went to India and Nepal, the next location where he left from, when he left from the Middle East. Yeah. So, although he continued to do spiritual work in a different area in 3D, in the different region, yeah, they created all of this narrative which you have been taught in church about the crucifixion as being God's will to sacrifice his child in order to wash the sins of the humans, which is a lie, and which is what they actually are doing at us continuously. It's a blood ritual and a sacrifice ritual done in order to transfer karma on some other individuals. There, sometimes in this process, there involves an actual death of the individual. Sometimes, for most of us, it doesn't necessarily involve an actual death. But this is being done in our lives, in astral, in convents. As I explained in the previous video, they use a doppelganger to impersonate you. I have seen a doppelganger of me taking part in sacrifice ritual on me, including with a ceremony of burial in a cemetery, in order to declare me dead and to steal my inheritance. But I am pretty much alive, as you can hear me, that I can speak to you right now. And I have seen this happening this year. I have seen this happening to me also in 2017. And I have felt the consequences of these ritualic practices with darkness in my energy field. So I actually speak from experience. I know before God showed all of this to me about Jesus, I first experienced it happening to me. And I did a lot of spiritual fighting in order to reach the level where God said, you now can understand. I now can explain to you what happened to Jesus. Yeah. So this is the perfect example to give you how they actually recreate a bondage once you are not there. And they do that, and they use, as Jesus' example is very important, because it can show you how they can use a bondage created in your absence. Literally, they enslaved the entire humankind, almost, large parts of the 3D, all Christianity, by making them take part in ritualic practices of blood and of sacrifice in communion taking. Yeah. So they succeeded with this lie, with this bondage, which they created upon Jesus after his departure from the region. They succeeded to take power over humans. Humans were meant to directly connect to God. But instead of that, through this bondage created on Jesus and through these lies which they say, they forced humans to actually go through a priest, to make confession to a priest, and for the priest to interfere between the human and God. And this is really important to understand, and this is why I use Jesus' example, because it's very telling how basically a successful bondage breaking, because I have been working in spiritual terms on further work which Jesus has done in different regions of the 3D. So in spite of that, they succeeded to use lies after his departure from the area to create all of this narrative with which they succeeded to enslave so many humans. And the enslavement can go to different degrees. Enslavement can mean the fact that you took part in blood sacrifice ritual without you even knowing or understanding what is going on. This is already unacceptable that they have done this. But it can go further on some people who are not as powerful. This kind of taking power over them goes more in depth, because it impacts their energetic field much deeper, and they even get to become, radical religious practicing individuals, and so on. So it is very important to understand. Now, as I said, it is my experience that each and every single bondage that you break, or you have to break, each and every single bondage created on you, is a copy, updated, of a bondage created on your ancestor. When you do the bondage breaking, it is important for you to notice patterns in your life and to seek to understand which bondage are you breaking, or are you facing, on which ancestor was created, for what purpose, and what they achieved by doing that. It is important to understand the assignment you have. The assignment you have is not just, they stole some money from me, let's take it back so I can buy a new car. It's not like that. It's much, much deeper, and you must understand all the implications of that bondage creation in order to have a very successful bondage breaking. This is why when you claim justice for yourself, you claim justice for your ancestor and for your lineage, because by doing so, you transmute all of the darkness associated with the bondage, both the one done on you, but also the one done on your ancestor. And that is extremely important, because essentially this is how 3D is going to be dismantled. By more and more of us, all of us doing bondage breaking and transmuting all the darkness. This is when all of them will be exposed, and there will be no deception anymore. The ascension is divine strategy for this purpose, in order to achieve this. Yeah, bondage breaking was done by our ancestor always. But at this point in time, our generation has the benefit of ascension, whereas more of us can do this with much greater impact. And the timing of the ascension has been decided by God and the divine realm according to a timetable related to the metamorphosis of the forces. This is a time where more races from the cosmos came together, and they decided the dismantling of 3D. So the point is, we have done bondage breaking for a long time. Now is the time to end this. So it is critical to understand the importance of your work in bondage breaking. I'm saying this, and the purpose, I asked God when I got this topic to speak on this morning. I said, why should I talk about this? Why is this important? In order to convey to you, of course, this is why I asked. And God said, because there's a lot of effort that they are doing, and I have seen this in my own bondage breaking, on many levels, to convince everyone, including you, that this is not so important. Okay, you can let this go. You don't have to be in conflict over this issue, because it's not that important. This is a lot done on you. It's energy manipulation to make you believe that, okay, I'm tired, I'm not in the mood to fight over this issue. Or it's done also on the justice system to say, okay, this is not a big deal, we can cut this off, and we can give them some mercy. But it's not like so. It is not like so. This is just a strategy they use in order to manipulate you energetically, to make you give up in doing. This is your assignment. So what they try to do is to, even if you succeed in proving and exposing them and getting divine justice, they try to downplay it, to make it sound like it's not important. Okay, you can let it go now. You cannot fight over every single detail involved in this. You cannot for each and every single money which was taken from you. You cannot fight for each and every single promotion opportunity, and so on and so forth, But this is not so. And God has shown to me that many individuals focus only on themselves because they don't have a clear understanding who they are, and only focus on the reality about themselves, which they know from 3D. They don't go further with the research in order to understand, okay, whose embodiment I'm carrying now, which ancestor of mine I'm embodying now, and for whom I'm breaking bondage, what bondage they created on him, and what was the impact on the humankind and on 3D, maintaining grip over this territory and people. Because when you do the bondage breaking, you have to break both what is done on you, but also what was done on your ancestors, either during their lifetime or after their departure from 3D. Yeah. So this is very important. This is extremely important to understand. For example, because I speak, and I'm not the only one who speaks about this, namely about the communion given in church, which is a blood ritual, it's a sacrifice ritual, unacceptable, it's witchcraft. And I'm not the only one saying this. This is a reality. This is a truth. As many of us speak about this, this will disappear. So this is the bondage breaking about ancestors who broke the bondage when they were on 3D, but these creeps created bondage on them after they left. This is very important because what you do, you save your lineage from being forced to do another incarnation to send somebody here in order to break that bondage. This is really important because as you can see, many of us deal with generational curses which are created through this crucifixion rituals of sacrifice, and it takes 49 years to get to the end of the generational curses to be able to actually successfully end that. You can break the bondage on that multiple times throughout those 49 years. Okay? So it's not like you don't do anything 49 years. You can break that bondage many times, but because it's a generational curse, that bondage will be recreated. So if it's, I'll give you an example. If it's a generational curse on your love life, all men that come your way, all men that you engage with, will be subjected to that generational curse, even if they initially come with a good intent towards you. Once they get into a connection with you, if you're subjected to this generational curse and it's your assignment to break it, then both of you are being targeted by the generational curse and by the individuals who actually watch over you and enforce that on you. Because let's be clear, they don't make this generational curse and then go away and leave you alone. They actually follow you all your life with all these convents, and they recreate that, and they make sure that every individual that comes your way will be a victim of that generational curse. They use that generational curse in order to recreate multiple darkness attacks on you. I know this for a fact. Even before I knew about bondage breaking and I understood about spiritual fighting consciously, I could actually see them following me clearly. And for a long time, I believed, these people are just doing surveillance and they're connected to my workplace because I worked in diplomacy on security matter, many times at very high level with very sensitive information. So I knew surveillance is part of this mechanism. But I must tell you that for many years, particularly towards the end of my career, I was always a little bit puzzled because I was like, at this point in time in my career, I decided to keep a low profile, not to work with high-level officials because I wanted to have more time for myself. I wanted to be away from them because I saw they're very shallow and they actually don't do anything. They just have a very mafia corrupted type of system in which they reach high-level positions, but they don't actually do anything. They don't want to do projects. They are very shallow. And many other things that I didn't like. So I was like, at this point in time, I'm keeping a low profile for a long time. I don't understand why they keep following me and because there's not justified to invest that many resources to do that much surveillance over me. And there were many individuals at the same time doing surveillance on me. And I was like, this is not justified. This is simply just too much resources invested, and at this point in my career really doesn't make sense because I'm not working with sensitive information And I'm not working with individuals who would be concerned that I would be maybe used by somebody else or something. So I have seen this with my own eyes, and I thought it's a surveillance related to my work. When I learned about the bondage breaking and about all of this darkness and convents and so on, I actually learned that many of those were not related to my work. Many of those were actually convent people, and even some of them which were coming from public institutions and from Intel area, where namely they should have actually gotten mandate only for official reasons. Many of them were involved in convents, and they had a double how to say this, they were involved on one hand in public institutions, but in private they were also part of a convent, and they received orders from the convent to follow me or to do different things against me, which essentially was in breach with their professional ethic. And they were not allowed to do this. There was abuse of power, and actually is being punished even in 3D courts of law. It's against the law. You're not allowed to take orders from other type of institutions in order to do surveillance on me or to create different setups for me and so on. Anyhow, so I tell you from experience, it's not something that I've seen now. I just didn't understand why God wants me to talk about it right now. But this is why God says, particularly for those who are not engaged with public institutions like I have been throughout my entire adult life, and they don't know what are actually the law provisions for those individuals. They many times abuse power, and they request from other individuals things which they are not entitled to according to the law, and they use the fact that people do not know. That could not be used against me, because I've been working as a diplomat for 27 years, so I knew very well what is allowed for them to do and not. I've done institutional reform in MFA for a long time, as I was counselor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time. So I was leading the team doing institutional reform, so I know all the law provisions and what they are allowed to do. And even in this capacity, I must tell you, some of these individuals from Intel would come to me and would say to me, we need you to fire this individual. You see? And I would tell him, excuse me, why? You need you to fire? He's a diplomat, he works in MFA, he's not your employee. And he says, yeah, you need to fire him because he works as a spy. And they said, well, if you have information on that, documented, send it in written, you don't come to me to talk to me to fire an individual. You might be right, he might be a spy. This is part of the establishment. You encounter these situations. Prove it. And they would say, well, we don't have proof. Well, I'm not going to fire an individual just because you have a suspicion. The law says you have to have proof in order to fire an individual, and you have to document it. First of all, he can go to a court of law and he will win. Second of all, I'm not going to take this upon my conscience to fire an individual. You are human as well. Maybe you are wrong. Maybe you hate that individual and you have a personal vendetta against him. How do I know? So I would constantly have arguments with them because they were very, how to say this in English, they're very arrogant. And they will come to me like, we need you to fire this. No, you don't. Actually, they will say, we want you to fire this. And I'm telling you, they are not even allowed to do this. And I told them, you might want a lot of things. It doesn't mean everything will happen as you want. I also want to be on a beach right now, but I'm in the office working. So get a grip on reality, go to your office, write a paper, explain what you want in written, not spoken word, which you can deny later on. Document, justify why you want this. You have a higher level signature on that fucking paper when you send it to me, which must respect the hierarchy. So that individual who signs the paper must have a job description which allows him and gives him the authority. Not everybody can sign it. There are certain people who have authority to decide upon this. Your level of ranking doesn't give you authority to decide on this. Do you have a higher up who decided this, or is it your personal opinion? So I'm telling you, they are very arrogant, and are very forcefully pushing for something when they want. But if you put them in their place, you will learn that more than 80% or 90% that they ask, it's actually not within their authority. They're overstepping boundaries of authority. And basically, I'm telling you, I didn't fire that individual that he was talking about. That individual, they persecuted him a lot. And that individual actually went through an investigation. His name was cleared, and a few years later, he was appointed ambassador. And I'm not sure what's his age now, if he's still in MFA. But what I mean to say, that individual proved to be innocent. So if I would have listened to that jackass who came at me and asked me to fire him, I would have committed, harm against an individual who was innocent. And I have seen, this is just one example I'm giving you, but throughout the time I did institutional reform, I had a lot of arguments with them like this. Because they are pushing very forcefully, and literally it's a bullying intimidation tactic, which they do. And they take advantage of the fact that their institution deals with secrets, and they keep saying, we cannot show you, this is a secret. Then fucking if you cannot show me, then you cannot request. You cannot invoke in dialogue with me some sort of rule or authority which I cannot document. If you keep it a secret, then you cannot act upon it. That's your problem. You have to document it. And again, I had multiple examples of this, and I have witnessed in my personal professional experience numerous situations in which they demanded, in a bullying intimidation type of approach, issues to be done, things to be done, which essentially were not legal, or at least were not legally documented and decided upon. So it was clearly groups of interest which really wanted to use to abuse power, literally. And they kept saying to me, they were very annoyed, by this, and they kept saying to me, you're not cooperating with us. And they said, that's not my purpose to cooperate with you. This is not why I'm in this position. I'm in this position to do my job. I will only cooperate with you to the extent of interinstitutional cooperation according to the norms, procedures, and rules, and according to the law. And if you are doing something harmful to other people, illegal, and abuse of power, I will fucking not be part of it. Get it through your head. I will not be part of it, and I will not allow you to abuse power against individuals using my name. I will not be doing that dirty work for you. That's your problem. Your job, and you get a salary, is to, if you have a suspicion, go document it and get a signature which has authority to decide upon that. It's not your place to decide that. I might think that my colleague is not qualified for the position he has. Doesn't mean that I can fire him. There's a higher up who has authority to decide upon that. It's the same with you. You go to the higher up who has the authority to sign a paper like this. You don't come to me with this bullshit. So anyhow, I'm telling you, much of this is being done in many ways. I don't know, God is showing to me to give you these examples. You guys, I'm telling you, sometimes in a video, I only say one word, and then God is making me pause on that topic, and he says, talk about this. Although that was not my intention initially, in many videos it happens like this. God deviates me from what I intend to say, and he shows to me while I'm speaking, expand on this. And I know for a fact that every time when he does this, God has a specific purpose in mind. So for this reason, God showed me to focus on this and to give these examples from my personal experience. There are many, many examples I have been encountering, specifically when I was doing institutional reform, but also later on in my career, as I was doing my own files on security matters. I gave examples before when individuals were actually abusing power in order to convince me, and they don't actually ask you to. They come and give order, like, do this. I'm like, what the fuck you are? First of all, you don't have authority to give me orders. Okay? So go by the normal hierarchy. If you're avoiding the hierarchy, that for me, it's already a red signal. Why don't you do the normal procedure? Why don't you go by hierarchy? Why don't you write this in on paper so it will be documented that it's you who requested this? This is very important. These are very important notes for those who actually encounter it. And God is showing to me that mostly people in justice system are encountering this, or at least this is a message which God wants to send to the people in justice system. They many times would tell me, to make a recommendation in an evaluation that I would write on specific topics of arms control or other topics of security. And they will actually just say, recommend this. And they said, you don't tell me what to recommend. I make my evaluation and my recommendation according to my expertise and my conscience. And if you don't like that, you can write on my paper. I do not agree. I have a hierarchy. And the line of hierarchy, which is above me, is the only one who can actually tell me what to write in a document. But even that, if I don't agree with what they want me to write, and if it's in conflict with what I believe professionally, I will not do that. And it happened to me in my profession. I said, I don't agree with this. Of course, you are on a higher level ranking, so you can do this without me, but I will not be part of it. I cannot go speak about publicly because it's against the code of conduct, but I will refuse to be part of it, and I will basically just give you back the file, give it to somebody else. So we'll write this. I don't agree to write this because it's wrong. Because it's wrong, and because I see the consequences and the type of manipulation that you want to do will take the decision making in a totally wrong direction, and I don't agree with that. And many times I told them, the political leaders always have the right to make political decisions. Political decisions might be in breach even with the law, meaning with international treaties or arrangements that we have. But that's a decision for a political leadership to do. And they will say, freaking, we don't agree with NATO membership, we decide to get out of NATO, then we break the norms which are in NATO membership implied. Yeah, that's a decision. The political leadership can do that. But you assume the responsibility of making that decision. You don't force me to recommend this to you, to keep staying in NATO, but then breaking the rules of NATO, and you pretend that it's my idea and you receive this recommendation from me. No, you be a man. You be a man. Assume the responsibility of making that decision to break an agreement, that's a political decision. People voted you, you're in power, you have the power to do that. But be a man about it. Assume the responsibility of doing that. Don't manipulate me to blame it on me when this happens. Okay, we diverted a little bit more. I don't know why. Only God is pushing me in this direction. The main point is that there's a huge effort by multiple forces, that means institutions or organizations, in order to bully and to push into through manipulation and through intimidation, to cover up for their actions, to push other individuals to assume responsibility and follow their orders. Although they abuse power and authority when they give those orders, they are not entitled to the authority of giving those orders. And this is really important. This actually, God says to me, this should be investigated. This should be investigated by the justice system and by authorities in place. This is what God says. And I agree with God clearly, because many times I encountered this kind of bullying and intimidation tactics, particularly in working with military institutions. All of them, being MOD, being intelligence branches from different security-related institutions and so on. Many times I have encountered that. And luckily for me, they could never intimidate me, even at a very young age. But many other individuals actually do allow them to actually get away and intimidate them and force them into these wrong decisions. And I actually had these kind of situations where colleagues of mine would come to me and would say, this Intel institution told us to do this against you. There was actually even a commission was done for a disciplinary measure against me, and that individual who was writing the report recommended a positive report in my favor. And then she came to me and she said bluntly like this, we sent this to the minister for approval in your favor, and then the Intel institution came and they told us and to the minister that this is not allowed, that you should be punished. Then the head of the disciplinary department came to me and apologized, and they said that he said to me, Dana, he said on the hallway, there are also cameras there, and he said, I apologize, it's not me, I didn't decide this, we decided favorable to you, but then they came and they forced us to do this and to make a disciplinary measure against you and commission. And also the minister actually told me, everybody would come to me and would say, look, we will do this against you because they forced us to, just so you will know it's nothing personal, we know it's not true, and we did not create this against. So I went through many experiences, and they told me, they forced us to do this. They told us they don't accept favorable recommendation for you. They want a negative one. And God has shown to me afterwards, that literally they created, that was a setup, they created that disciplinary committee and they enforced a negative outcome against me just in order, because I was ranking too much. And by me ranking too much, the institution where I was working automatically was going up in ranking. And basically, it was the presidential and the intelligence community which they decided, they said, who in MFA is ranking so high? Just downgrade her because we don't want that institution to go higher than us. They couldn't reach as high as me. So then they created this stupid ass disciplinary measure in order to downgrade me so I wouldn't be higher than them, So you'll understand to what extent they go. I knew all of this a long time ago. I didn't feel like talking about it, but it seems like God wants me to talk about it because God is showing now to me that there are other individuals who go through this and that this should be investigated and justice should be done for the ones who are going through it now, but also for us who went through this before, because this is clearly breaking all the norms, the rules, the procedures in 3D, let alone the ones in 5D and the divine justice and so on. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna stop here the video. Now, what I'm the message of the initial message of the video, because I see God took me through totally different areas and multiplied with other messages. The initial message was it's important to understand which bondage you are breaking, which ancestor you're embodying, and in order for you to do the bondage breaking for yourself, but for your ancestor and your lineage as well at the same time. So you will save your lineage from the heartache of sending somebody else into incarnation, into this madness, just in order to break a little bit of the bondage which you could have broken just by making an affirmation or a claim for justice in your ancestor's name. Okay. And also, of course, there were the other messages which God pushed forward during my video related to how these individuals who actually have multiple loyalties, God says, multiple loyalties. So they work for public institutions only as a cover-up, but they actually work and receive money from convents and different masonry, mafia, matrix type of organizations, and so on and so forth. Yeah, which again, God is showing to me to send this message to the justice system, which has to be investigated, and justice must be done for all of those who were harmed unjustly through all of this abuse of power. Yeah? Okay.